Hello, good evening, and welcome to a new idea that I've got floating through my head. And this one is all about mental health. It's all about how I personally handle my mental health journey, and it's like what I stand for with everything. It is my place of honesty on that performance where I come from. Hi Gemma, hope you're well, and thanks for tuning in. I'm not quite sure how this was going to go, because normally I would start out with an apology that about my appearance, that I'm not shaven, I've not got my usual kit on, but that's kind of like the point. I've called this In Two Minds because just over the last sort of 5 or 6 weeks, that my mental health itself has not been as strong as I'd like it to be. So what I always do when I start to struggle, I try and find out what the cause of that might be and where that's actually coming from. And always with me as well, that I've got this mentality with my work that the show must go on. Where my heart and my passion is with all of my work is helping people deal with the impact of actually being themselves. And I just thought that the best, thank you, Gemma, I appreciate that. And I thought that the best thing that I could do with that was just talk about honestly how this sort of idea came into being. And sorry, I'm just trying to get comments up there. But there we go. So thank you, Gemma. And where it come in. So the idea behind this is, say, I've been struggling a bit with my own mental health. So a little tiny bit of my history. From about 16, I was diagnosed with depression, probably a little bit of anxiety in there. I can't actually remember that bit going that far back. And like with everybody's depression and anxiety, it's a label that's freely given. But there's, to be honest, with my experience, there's not really a set way of treating it. You're kind of like cast to the wolves, where they try and stick you with some tablets. It'll be counselling, it'll be with this, that, and the other. And I think I've run the whole gambit of medical practitioners. So no way will any of what I talk about on this channel will be a substitute for medical advice, because you must find your own way. What I'm intent on talking about is how I handle things. So the In Two Minds part of it. So I've sat there, and I'm not like you, Gemma. I've not got years and years of experience on YouTube. So I've spent lots of hours watching other people, how they put themselves across. I've watched lots of YouTube videos on the best way to promote yourself and how you put across what it is that you're doing, and you present yourself really, really well. And I thought, as per usual, that doesn't interest me. I set out with the idea that this was going to be a monetized channel, and I was going to gradually grow from that, and that would be part of my working life. Right now, I maybe underestimated just how hard work that actually producing content actually is. It is very, very difficult to maintain that energy. And I've noticed it's become a little bit all-consuming. The other thing was that I looked at how when I'm working with my other personas, how easy or difficult life becomes. So as I say, my depression has took a dip. There are mitigating reasons, but I'm not one of those that really, really wants to go into it, because like with all social media, it's not actually your diary. Not everybody needs to know everything. So it's the bare bones and the mechanics, but there is reasons for why my mental health has took a dip. So I always look at strategizing and how I'm going to deal with that. So to deal with the strategies that I put in place since I was about 15 or 16, I need to be in a clear thinking headspace. And that comes with experience, that comes with knowledge, and it comes with practice. So I've got this thought into my head. I've looked at how the darkness tends to come in. And there's triggers. I think everybody, if you suffer with anything to do with mental health issues, there are triggers. And so I looked at what the triggers were. And there's that usual feeling of being a little bit I don't know. It's not so much self-confidence these days, but think about self-esteem and things like that. So something had triggered that. There'd been a challenge, and I kind of went downwards. So I thought, how am I going to manage? How am I going to manage this situation? And I sought advice from somebody that I trust, and they came back with a question, which kind of like rocked me a little bit. And they went, "Who are you?" And I said, and I gave out the usual labels. I'm Rick Paul. I'm a psychic. I'm a medium. I'm a dad. I'm a husband. I'm a brother. I'm a son. And no, who are you? Who are you? Strip away all of those labels. Who are you? And the truthful answer was, I didn't know. I didn't know. I couldn't answer that. So I've got to rely on something within to solve these problems. And yet I didn't know who I was. So I looked back over the course of my life and I thought, how have I handled stressful situations in the past? And this is where my poster becomes relevant of how I've advertised this. Because if you see on there, you've got me in the waistcoat and you've got me with my hoodie on and dressed like this. Right. Why do I dress with a hoodie on? Because that is how I feel most comfortable. I always feel that if I put the hood up, it's like an element of safety. It's like that covering that you become anonymous and there's no energy drawn to you. And I kind of like that because it's when attention is paid, strangely enough, that the nerves kick in. So I looked at that and I thought that's a good coping strategy. But is he useful when it comes to dealing with real trauma and crisis or anything that's out of the ordinary? So, for instance, if I go on stage or anything like that, is that part of my character useful? And I've got to say, no, he's not really that useful. He gets very agitated. He's an overthinker. He's an over analyzer, and he struggles with everyday life. Now, I'm not stupid. I'm not putting any labels on myself in the sense that I've had anything diagnosed, because what I've had diagnosed, I'll be perfectly honest, there is clinical depression, environmental depression, and also over the years, post-traumatic stress disorder. Still not understanding 100% of what a trauma does in regards to how you process sensory information. Yeah. So, where I'm picking up on that, Gemma. Yeah. That for me is a nice way of describing it, but I've not had that the benefit of somebody giving me the ins and outs of that. It's just stuff that I've read. So this character, the one that you're seeing, is me in the everyday, and is me that I've had to contend with over these last few weeks. So say if you consider that I've had depression since I was 16, I've done really well to keep on top of it. And I would say that these last couple of weeks in particular have been the worst that I've been for 10 years. Now, there's an element of grief locked into there. There's an element of disappointment with one or two things. I've had a couple of fallouts with one or two people. So it all sort of caves in. Now, what happens is the other side of that coin is the other guy that comes in. And this is the strange thing, right? I was also worried that when I put this post on here, right, I have not been diagnosed as schizophrenic or anything like that, but I've always felt that I've got different personalities within my mind. And it all depends on who actually turns up. Right. Thank you. Yes, that's how I'm beginning to piece it together, Gemma. So thank you for that. So when this showbiz guy turns up, right, I like him. I actually like him. He's the fun side of me. He's got the answer. He's got the element of strength that I look for. Doesn't fear really, because what he does is he turns up and he does the business. And what I've found is that I can hide within that personality. So I obviously like to perform on stage. You've got to be there's a little bit of a screw loose in there somewhere to want to put yourself up in that place where you're going to be shot at. You know, that sort of parapet moment where if you're going to make a statement, whether it's sort of controversial, whether you're working with your spirit guides or you're working with something like that, there's going to be people out there that don't agree with you, right? When I'm on stage, and I'm dealing with that side of my persona, I don't care, right? Because it's a caricature that comes out that is really, really confident and deals with all of that stuff. The problem is he's only short-lived. He's only short-lived. So what happens is when you come off stage and that persona is put to bed and the waistcoat is hung away, because the waistcoat is only ever symbolic, because it doesn't matter what I wear, that I am still me underneath. But what I come off to is this. And this is the person that when I get down in the dumps and I get flattened, that I don't like and that I struggle to deal with. So when the question was put to me, who are you? The truthful answer was that I didn't know. But when you sit and work it out and think about it logically, you're the sum total of all of your parts put together. And that's good, bad, and indifferent. And no matter what therapy that you have, no matter what sort of tools that you're taught about being uplifting and getting past and all of this sort of stuff, when all of them lights have been switched off, then what tends to happen is that you're still back faced with you. So until you put these things into place and you find a way of managing them so that they suit you, then you're always going to be faced with your realities. So I'm not talking about coping or anything like that. I'm just talking about my mind perspective, and I have really struggled. Now, social media in its way can be good. If you've got a collection of people that you can't always get to see in person, you can do this over these means. You can do them over Messenger and all the other sort of things that you can actually do these messages over, and you can get comfort from people. Now, I was really, really careful that when I was working with all of this, that yes, I'm struggling, right? And I'm going to make no bones about that, but I won't be beaten. And that is based on just sheer bloody mindedness. But Facebook as well is this law where you go on there and you put a post on. And as I say, if you put it on the public domain, you're open to be torn to bits. So I put a post on there that was saying, right, I don't want to share what's going on, right? What is literally going on in my mind. All I want to do is for people to just hold a space in their healing thoughts and prayers, because I didn't want to go into the ins and outs of it. And to be truthful, even though I'm on this now broadcasting, I don't want to go into the ins and outs of it. What I'm looking at is structure now and how I manage with my head, what my aspirations are, because we've got the lovely Fitness Hutch on here, who is an excellent coach. He really is. That he puts structure in place for people. And I was looking at something that he put on the other day where he was being open and honest, and he did this vlog, right? And the thing is about my work, I want to be as original as I can be with my work. I mean, at the end of the day, there's only so many times you can reinvent the wheel. But I always like to see that if I'm doing work on a certain subject, I like to put my own little twist in it. What I admired about Hutch's video there was that he was showing that he'd got a product that he put on that was finished, tidied up, and it'd been edited and things like that. And then he put the one on there that had got, I call it like a blooper reel, you know, with the things that happen in your real life. And I was inspired by that. I thought, I looked at that. And to be truthful, if you're building a profile that's got as many followers as what Hutch has got, you've got to be a little bit courageous to put that out there on something there where people could laugh or take the mickey in a certain way. And he weren't bothered. Right, so I looked at me at the level that I'm at, 240 subscribers at the moment. And I thought, right, I don't need to be worrying about what my reputation is. I don't need to be worrying whether whether YouTube are going to pick me up on this, that, and the other. I just want to sit on here and talk, because I've watched other channels, and there's other channels on here that just sit and talk, you know, about the hobbies, where they've been, what their thought process has been, maybe where they've been for a meal. And I thought, no, I want a little bit more than that from me. I want to challenge and push myself, because I want to put out that I'm a supporter of people. But also within that, I'm also quite flawed in the fact that I'm not ever going to sit here and say to you guys that I'm I'm the sort of person that you need to follow. My idea was that when I put these lives on, was to give you an insight that there's other people out there that have got this neurodivergent mind, they've got this multiple personality, but not everybody gets diagnosed. I'm not looking for labels, right? I'm just looking at showing how the sides of my two minds work, because it's very, very real. And I was a little bit concerned that would I come across as being like I was making fun out of people with mental health difficulties. So I didn't want to be really glib about it as well. So this was the idea of why I came on with the sweatshirt on, why I'm unshaven, because I don't want to play a role tonight. I want to show the other side of what I'm looking at. People are either going to understand, like Gemma put on there, or they're not. But the thing is, it still has an impact on you. There'll be people there that have managed to put this face on when they're going onto YouTube and when they're presenting, that things aren't bothering them, and they put on this, upliftment. And I'm going, right, that's great. If you've got that about you to do that, and you've got that strength, then, I bow to you. I haven't got that resilience. This is why I hide behind the masks, the personas. Is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? Well, I don't know, because on its best days, it's brilliant because there's things coming in from all different angles. But on the days where, like it's been over the last couple of weeks, it is incredibly difficult to motivate myself to do anything. And yet I know that once I've come through this particular patch, then I will be more productive again. But I love talking to people. I love supporting people. My honest and 100% belief is that I've been given a spiritual gift to connecting with an outside energy, an outside source that promotes other people. I give them my energy and I pass across what I may feel, and that helps promote them to move forward. But again, when all of the lights are switched off, I'm then back to having to deal with this guy. And I would love to sit here in front of you, and I might even sound crazy that I'm talking about myself in the third person when I'm actually watching. I'm just trying to be honest, that this guy is the one that I don't respect, and there is a distinct difference. Now, this is like I was saying at the beginning, you have to get it into your head that you are the sum total of all your parts, good, bad, or indifferent. So my aim is over this next few months going into 2024 is to have two quite distinct sides of what is the product that's being put out here, but also recognizing that they are two totally different streams as well. Where my heart is being a therapist. It is using the energy that I've got, the gift that I've been given, to help promote people to find their best selves. But to do that, I need to have my best side of me working. So it's an old saying, isn't it, that you're only as strong as your weakest link. So I've mentioned before, humorously, I feel that my work was based on, or the thoughts there was based on an old comic strip called the Numbskulls. And I've explained this before, and for those of you who don't remember it, I was an avid comic book reader when I was a kid, and I think the comic was called The Beezer. And one of the storylines in there was a guy that was controlled by the numbskulls, that he used to have a thought box put into his head, and the numbskulls would put the thoughts in there, and then he would then react to the thoughts as they came through. So he would like be drawn out, right, he needs to walk, right, so he'd then walk. And like when he was hungry, there would be two numbskulls in the stomach there throwing stuff into his stomach and things like that. And I sometimes think that that's how my mind works. That, but it's the stimulus of what's going on around me. There's, I was inspired by an ex-prison officer to start putting this together, because what he said to me was, when I was working at my last prison, he said, on your day, he said, you're one of the best officers that I could wish to work with. He says, because you come in motivated. He says, you come in and you want to get things done. You're a grafter, you all organise things, and we crack on and we can just make sure that everything's done that's needed to be done. And I said, yeah. And he said, but on your worst days, he said, you're a fucking nightmare. And I have to say that I agreed with him. But I did make a point of defense by saying, right, you imagine having a mindset like mine when you don't know as an individual what mood you're going to get up in, what's going to happen to you during that day. Now, Paul will tell you a lot better than me, and I agree with that, Paul, by the way. Yeah, Paul will tell you it a lot better than me, but setting your goals and putting things into place to make sure that you achieve them, and kind of like making yourself accountable. Right? Don't get bogged down by, oh, I've got to do this for somebody else. You make yourself accountable. But it's the days where you haven't got the energy to do it, and all you can do is just push through. Is that your achievement and your goal setting is that you're going to get through the day by hook or by crook. And to be truthful, that is what I've just been doing over these last few days and into the last couple of weeks. I've had a lot going through my mind, and a lot of things there about where I feel like I've disappointed myself. But then that's in disguise. You know, the sort of spiritual side of me when I'm working with the tarot cards and things like that. So you will notice a distinct difference in my energy tomorrow night when I come on and I do my tarot work, because that lights me up. I don't light me up. I don't give myself that upliftment because I'm terrified of coming across as having a big head or a big ego or anything like that. So I naturally, my go-to move is to put myself down. So I'm not going to sit here and say to you that by the end of this year, I'm going to have that solved, because I'm 51, and that's 51 years of learned behavior of trying to just get through the day and blag it. What I'm aiming to do is, over the course of this year, is to be able to put the two sides of my character together and embrace them equally. Right? That's all I want to do, is embrace them equally. I'm always going to have that diversity in my mind, because there's parts of me that are needed to come in that bring that humor, that bring that sort of like looking at that side of it. There's also that person there that needs to do that analysis with people. But my core running program during the day is anxiety, it's nerves. And the only way that you can deal with anxiety is to step up to it. Right. And it's how you manage your mind. Now that's what I'm good at. I sit with people, and Paul will back me up on this. We've had this conversation before, that when we tell ourselves something, right, we talk about what our limits are. So something's triggered us, and that's it. We've had enough. So we turn around and we issue the phrase to ourselves, that's it, I'm done. Right. It could be any amount of situations. Nobody truthfully knows what they're capable of until they're in that moment. Now, the mind has a field day at times, because it starts plotting for events that you don't want to actually happen. So you're using all of your energy. Well, if that happens, I'm going to do this. If that happens, I'm going to do this. And essentially, we live in a 98 and 2% world, because 98% of the shit that we think up doesn't happen. And the 2% that does, we deal with it, because if we didn't, we wouldn't be here. So you can base that on fact. But when the mind goes into that meltdown mode, that I'm not good enough, I can't do this, I'm anxious, I'm useless, whatever it is that the inner narrator is telling you, we've got to find a strategy to stop that noise. So the command comes through, I'm done. And I've countered this as, by saying, and then what? Because the mind needs structure. Because left untended or unguarded, it'll piss off on a flight of fantasy, and it'll knock you all over the place. So we look at the statement that's made, and is that, you know, I'm not good enough, I can't do it, I'm done. Right. So the mind will just go, okay. So then between that statement and that full stop is a bloody big gap. Right. Now we can either fill it with shit. Well, knowing my luck, I'm going to fuck this up. So I'm just going to go to the ground, and I'm really, really upset, and I'm useless. And that's what I've always been told. So that's what I'll always be. Or this is where the stronger side of us is going, right, okay, let's be realistic. I am not the strongest person in the world, but every challenge that I've been given in my life, I've got through. Right. And you can base that on evidence, because as long as you're stood there to fight the fight in whatever way, you've won. you have won. So you look at that structure when it's coming through, right, I am done. Right. So I accept that. And it can have all sorts of parameters that is in there. And I say the same to people every time when they come and have my version of therapy, because I'm very, very abrupt. I'm very, very blunt when I'm dealing with people. And I think that that's part of how my mind works. But then I go, okay, right, you tell me your story. I'm not a counsellor, so I'm always honest with people. I'm qualified NLP practitioner, which is psychology based. I'm a qualified hypnotherapist, and I've had the mental health experience that I've had not only sort of on paper with what I did in the prison service, but also I've done a couple of courses that are online courses that gives me an insight, but it doesn't make me professional. So I've got to work with how I understand the problem that is being presented to me. So I say, right, so you're done. Okay. So now we pick a pathway of which way we're going to go. We either accept that information and we make plans that are positive, or we sit there and keep going backwards over stuff. So we're representing it to ourselves so we can make it tolerable. And we waste a lot of time doing that, because when something's gone, and that's the hardest thing, is finding the acceptance. So what I look at is when that statement is issued, it's followed by the same three words pretty much all of the time. And then what? Because we need to take hold of our mind. So like over these last few weeks, I can justify everything that I've been feeling, right? But then I've got to come to the point of go, and then what? Because I mean, none of us actually know how long we're going to live. So I'm 51. Let's assume that I get to the average age of 75. Now, and I say there's no guarantees other than death and taxes. So let's assume I live another 25 years. What I'm experiencing at the moment is very real. There's a mixture, as I say, of grief. There's a mixture of anxiety and a lot of other things going on in my mind. But that stage is not going to last forever. It may well still be part of what I think and how I process, but it's not going to be the 100% narrative. So I've also got to look at what I'm going to squeeze in there. So these things that have happened to me have all been real. They've all got justification that if I want to sit down there and wallow in it and say I can't cope, my subconscious mind will accept that as a fact without reference. But I'm also aware of the fact that I love doing what I'm doing. I love reaching people. I'm short of knowledge on certain things at the moment, but then I've got a load of people out there that are way ahead of me in regards to tech and how you present and things like that. So I can plot a plan towards them and say, right, this is what I've got going on in my head. Can you help me achieve that? Once you get somebody then that can help you start ticking off the bits where you want to go, you can start putting together what is known as a timeline. Once you've got a timeline put together, the only person that needs to be made accountable for that timeline is yourself. So I always look at, if I set myself achievable goals, and it's great that I've got, just say there, just go through a few comments there as well. It's great that I've got, yeah, what a great saying that is. That's brilliant. I like that. Yeah, brilliant. Let's keep going through these. Now I've got what I would consider a proper coach on here. Well, in fact, we've got a couple on here now, because we've got Embracing Aging that talks about as we get older how you process. Brilliant channel, by the way. I will tag her in the links. The Fitness Hutch, right, is how that you make yourself accountable, and about goal setting and things like that. I understand everything that coaches have taught me. I get it. But my thing is that I struggle when I'm stuck in that mode, and it's the devil's own job to get me out of it. I get very distracted. I struggle to keep my mind on task because the concentration levels aren't great. And I've made, and this isn't allowances, this is excuses for the pretty much, I don't want to say 50 years on this planet. I'm only just starting to realize that my mind don't function like other people. So it's not about making allowances, but it's about being realistic about what I can actually achieve. Right, there is nothing that I can't do when my mindset is in the right frame of mind. I am the best ally you could wish to have, because I will keep being there and kicking you up the backside, because I also believe that once you get in like-minded people's energy, it's kind of like being given a bunk up. You will help heal vicariously through other people because you're on the same wavelength. You'll give them that lift. But it's difficult when the part of you that you need to do that action in turning up for the show. So I get I have got so frustrated over the years at myself because I've set myself these targets, but I've not given allowance for myself. People have known me as the mad bloke for years because I do unorthodox things. And I've just laughed it off because I thought it was funny. I genuinely did, until it started to become a problem to me. I had somebody on here, and I mentioned it the other day, that told me I needed to man up, and I needed to stop being so wet, and I needed to, do it. And I'm thinking, right, it just shows that, forget about the advice that you've just given. You don't know me whatsoever. What I took from these statements, and there's been a couple of them as well, is that it's not about manning up these days. It's about knowing who you truly are, how you're going to get through your day. And if you're putting yourself out there that you want to help people, one of the things that I find truly frustrating is if somebody comes on here and sits there in tears and has a meltdown and things like that, because you can't then turn around and expect somebody to follow you. So I've been very, very careful about what I've put out here. I don't want to sit down here and melt down. There's times off camera, and I'm not going to lie, where I have been in that state. But people out there that are looking for somebody to help them don't want that. The whole idea about this particular production is not to be the life coach in the sense of what Hutch is, where he will help you strategize, and they've got the multi-pronged attack where they're going to help with your nutrition, they're going to help with your physicality, and they're going to help with your mental mindset. Mine is going into the trenches. Whereas I feel that a lot of the coaches that I've seen are leading you into the lightness, their problem solving, right? My personal way of doing it is to take you into the darkness, right? And as we go into the darkness, I've been in the darkness for a long, long time. I feel like I'm a healer's healer. So we go into the darkness and we fight until we find acceptance or we find a solution to the problem. Once we're out of there, that's when somebody else takes over. Yes, I can give pointers, but I've started to realize now that I'm not as love and light as what I wanted to put across. But that's this persona. That is this person that's here now. So I'm looking at embracing this individual that sat here in front of you, and it is not easy. It is not easy because, like I said, and I'm not looking for people to pat me on the head and tell me that I'm really good at anything. I want to get to know me. And it just sounds like such a hippie-ish statement, whoa, man, I'm really lost. I'm trying to find myself and it's difficult. It's not about that. It's realizing at 51 years of age that I've got a diverse mind. And I never even considered it. I spoke to somebody who said, oh, you want to go and get yourself diagnosed. You want to do it right. I don't. Do you know what I truthfully want? Because this is my channel and I can pretty much say what I want on it until YouTube sort of step in and tell you off. But because I'm only on low numbers anyway, that's not going to make a great deal of difference to me. What I want is understanding of myself. And at the moment, as I sit here in front of you guys recording in 2024, I haven't got that about me. I haven't got that understanding of myself. I haven't got that love of myself that I need, because I associate that with ego. I associate ego with being big-headed. Now everybody's got ego as part of them, and it needs to be dealt with. But anything that sort of comes across as a big compliment for me sends me scurrying. If you saw some of the comments that I've had with my spiritual work, where people have bought me gifts, they've been wonderful. You get extra money when they've tipped you and things like that. It is incredible. But I've said this so many times before, you come off here and you can be looking at all of these fantastic comments and all of these people supporting you, and you come off, and if your mood is wrong, like today, I'm doing okay, but my mood today has been the best that it's been for about a week. And I can sit there and structure that I want to be down this particular path and I want to do all of this sort of stuff. But the mood is very, very difficult. Now, people might advocate for medicine. Now, please bear in mind that this is my personal opinion. I have been through every sort of stretch of the NHS system. So I'm not just talking off the top of my head here. And please, I'm at pains to keep reminding people, this is my personal opinion. This is not meant as advice. This is just showing how I process, because I just kind of needed to get it off my chest. I first took antidepressants at about 16 years of age. So I've gone through very many different tablets, up to the sort of stuff where you could potentially get admitted to a psych ward and things like that. Thankfully, I've managed to pull back from the brink, but it's been a process. I've been through psychologists, psychiatrists, say the NLP helped a lot and things like that. And I was also diagnosed as having PTSD, as I said there, post-traumatic stress disorder, as a result of a riot at Lincoln Prison. The thing is with that now, the support that I got from the prison service itself was zero. My colleague said that I've got no right to feel in that way and that no right to process it. You've got your fake tough guys there that have just gone, oh, it hasn't bothered me. And then they've gone home and got themselves pissed up or beat the missus up, got themselves into big debt, right? I didn't. I faced it, but I pulled it all inwards because I didn't want to bother anybody with it. So I ended up in a state where I was kind of like forced. And the trigger at the time that really sent me off the rails was that my dog that I'd had for a good number of years had to be put to sleep. And I just went downhill from there. And I went to I had this appointment with quite a highly qualified psychologist, I think. Psychiatrist, I don't know. I really don't now. It's long lost in the memory. But I sat there and I went to him and he started talking about medication and things like that. And I was on the highest dose of one particular medication that they could give. So he said, what are you on? And so I told him, and he said, so how do you feel about a medication change? And I said, well, I'm quite open to changing medication if you can give me an answer. So we went through what I'd been on, how much I'd taken, what the dose was. I said, I don't want a particular medication because I felt like it made me aggressive. And the last thing I needed with the temper and the anger that I was bottled up at that time was anything there that was a substitute and made me even more angry. So he said, right, do you know what this medication is? I went, yeah. I said, because I also work in a prison where when prisoners have different medication, they pretty much tell you all about it, and they'll tell you whether it's head banging gear, whether it's effective, this, that, and the other. So I sat with this guy, and he agreed that I'm willing to try this new medication. And I said, but before I agree to all of this, can you tell me one thing? He said, what's that? I said, can you tell me if it'll make me better? And he looked at me and he said, no. And he said, I can't answer that honestly. He says, because everybody's depression's different. So I said, well, I can get my head around the fact that if I'd got a problem with my car and I took it to a mechanic, I would have this expectation that the mechanic would fix my car or at least diagnose the problem and take me to wherever I needed to go to get my car repaired. That's fine. But when it comes to medication for working with your mental health and your mind like that, there's such a wide road there that you can't pigeonhole anybody. So like my plea is with people here that even when you're going through a rough trot, there are other avenues, there are other things to consider. I'm so lucky in the fact that, hi CatScan, I'm so lucky that I'm in that place where I've got a wife who supports me, and I thank the ground that I walk on that she's there, because it's straight John Bull advice and guidance, and she's always my biggest supporter. So I've always got that person that I can lean on. But I also know what it's like to be leaned on, right? And this is the difficult thing with all of this that I'm doing my best to promote, that I'm putting myself out here as saying I will always be there in some form or another for the people that contact me, purely because this is what I believe my spiritual journey is about. It's about supporting people. The thing is that I'm supposed to be there to put my hands underneath to give people a bunk up, you know, to get the healers that are doing their job that have left things behind. But to do that, you also need to be on song yourself. And I sat there, and the few readings that I've done this year already, I've said to people, just think about this. Think about it really, really carefully, that self-care is not a luxury, it's a necessity. You cannot pour from an empty cup. So I have reluctantly, and I've just sat there and done pretty much nothing. And it sounds sad, right? But like I say, I'm an honest guy. It sounds sad, but I haven't been able to cope with anything. You know, it's difficult because you put in, as well as depression and anxiety, you throw in grieving. And then people, when they look at you and you say you're grieving, they will always, pretty much everybody will come to you that knows you, will turn around and say, oh, bless you, I'm feeling, you know, I'm sending you my condolences, I'm putting you in my healing prayers and my best wishes and all of that sort of thing. And that's lovely, because somebody's giving up their life's hours to pass across their feelings for you, to give you that lift. And I think that's lovely. But, and this is where the problem comes in. Again, grief is its own personal journey. So it's one of the things that I tend to shy away from, because the other thing is if you've not had a great relationship with somebody that you've all of a sudden lost, you've also lost that opportunity to put something right. Even if you 100% or sort of 99% know that situation was going to resolve itself, you lose a family member or somebody that's in your close circle, whether you've got a good relationship or not, that's a finality, right? And that finality has to be accepted. So it kind of like opens a can of worms. There can be all sorts of things, because everybody will grieve in their own way. Everybody will process their thoughts, good, bad, or indifferent. And then you will be in the middle of other people that have got totally different recollections, because they're allowed to. But that doesn't help you, right? If you're in that place of anger, if you're in that place of upset, if you're in that place of depression, because I can't turn around to you guys that are watching now and saying that a bereavement triggered my depression, because I was depressed about a month before all of that kicked off. That's just kind of like added to it. It's like that ball rolling down the hill, and I've got sort of crushed in it. But the one thing that marks me aside from a lot of people is that my record thus far from being knocked down and getting back up again is 100%. And that's something I'm bloody proud of, because I'm a bit of a perfectionist at the end of the day. I like everything to be right. But at the minute, I'm just trying to get as close as possible. So, yeah, and this is the thing as well, where human beings are all unique, right? There's another video on here that I did that I do a test, I do a quiz with people. And the three answers at the end of it are that it's designed to get you to look at it. So when I ask people these questions, I ask three questions. Hi, you Bumblebee. I look at these three questions, right? So, and if you can get this into your mindset as well, it's not like you must do, but I've used this quiz. And the thing is as well, even if you've got limited sort of confidence or anything like that, when somebody says you're guaranteed to pass this next test, it lifts your feelings. So it's a simple test, but I'm just going to run through it and just show you, because it's about managing your mind. And when you can change some of the thoughts, if you can change the thoughts in your mind, you also change the neural pathways. If you change the neural pathways, once it's recorded into the subconscious, then that pattern, once it's repeated, will help you feel better. It's only when we keep remembering the same old shit that's given us pain that we go into that state automatically. So I just say to him, right, I just want you to think carefully, right? Take a second out. Listen to my wording really, really carefully. Is there anybody in this world, in your town, in your city, in your village, out into the stratosphere, that is exactly like you, right? 99.9% of the time, the answer that is given is no, there isn't anybody that is exactly like me, because that's the key thing, exactly like me. We share similarities, we might have different mindsets, same mindsets as somebody, but essentially we've got that little element of a self that is slightly different. So I go, right, so it's only a 3-part question, so that is really good because you've got question number 1 right. Number 2, right, are you capable of getting through your day by utilizing certain skills? So, for instance, and they go, oh no, well, there's not a lot about me, or I haven't got this and I can't do that. I go, right, okay, just a minute, don't jump the gun here. Right. When you got out of bed this morning, what did you do? And it can be as basic as, well, I got out, I got my night clothes, dressing gown on, whatever it is you got. I went to the toilet, I brushed my teeth, I went downstairs, got my breath. Right. So there's a procedure that you've gone through that you've done countless amounts of times on repeat. So that is a skill. You know, for anybody who's driven a car somewhere and got there successfully without killing themselves, that is a skill. Another word for skill is talent, right? If you stretch talent, you're talented. So, and then I say to you, all I want you to do is, when I nod my head, is just agree with me, because I'm not trying to mislead you, and it'll possibly help you with the quiz at the end. Right. So you sit there and you say, right, so far, do you want to lock your answers in? So we've got a person there that is telling me that they've got a problem, they've got an issue, they're not good enough for this, they're not good enough for that. Right. So you're telling me with your first 2 answers that you're unique and you're talented. And would you agree? And because you've presented evidence to them, okay, it's not like massive things, but it is provable that we are one-offs, that we have got skills and talents that get us through every given day. So those answers are correct. Okay, I might have led them down the line a little bit with a bit of humor and a bit of silliness, but the answers are true nonetheless. So we then get to the 3rd one, that's a tie-in. Now, at the beginning of all of this, when I talk to people, I always say the same thing, right? You're going to get a prize at the end of this, because I guarantee that you're going to win, that you're going to get all of these answers right. But don't get too excited, because the prize is crap, right? I just came up with this one day because it just popped into my head. So we get to the third question, and we're drumming up the pressure. We're lifting up the vibration and the energy, and this is for all of the marbles. So are you sitting comfortably? And you've got people there looking at you like you're a bit of a nutter. And I go, right, so I want you to think of your last 2 answers. So you're unique and you're talented, and you agreed with me. Right, yes, right. So if I've got something that is a one-off that can never be made again, either in the future or going back, we cannot find another thing that's comparable to it. So if I put it up for auction somewhere, would you agree with me that it's actually priceless? Now, the answer's always got to be yes, because if you've got something that is a one-off and that is without compare, you can't put a value on it. So therefore, it must be priceless. So everybody locks in that 3rd answer. So the 3 answers that are locked in are unique, talented, and priceless. So I said, well, congratulations, because nobody's ever going to fail that test, right? So you should be feeling good about yourself now, because you've proven to yourself that you've got these 3 qualities about you. And I'm a man of my word. So I said, right, you get your prize. So I make a big fanfare of going down there into me bag of things, and I got, right, I'm going down into me bag of me imaginary props, and I lift it up like that, and I go, in here is your prize. And I open it up like that and make sure that they can see it, and I say, it's a mirror. Right, it's an imaginary mirror. Now I want you to get into the habit of repeating those answers that you've just given me to the face that looks back at you, that you are indeed unique, you are talented, and you are priceless. So on the bad days, when you get up, that you will use your uniqueness, your skills and your talents and your one-off energy to create a pathway to get through that day. and I've done it myself a lot just recently, I haven't been feeling like that. I haven't been feeling like I can lead anybody, that I can inspire anybody, but I keep going anyway, because my longer term aim is that I'm going to help people through those difficult phases, and I'm going to inspire them to do that by showing them that even though I have been down at some pretty low depths these last few weeks, but not everybody needs to know that. So the idea behind all of this was the in two minds part was, as I was saying there at the beginning, that this part of me needs work on at the moment, but you'll see a totally different side, because when it's showtime, I will step in and I'm working with spirit. But when I'm not working with spirit, I'm having to work with me. And that's the bit that I don't always come to terms with. So all of this was just out of my little mind. I'm going to hopefully do a bit of a video presentation to illustrate a little bit of point for those that are not going to sit through 50 minutes of me trying to explain what I'm trying to achieve. Thank you very much. Appreciate that, Gemma. Appreciate your time in. But the idea is to promote this, and I have a place like a community. Like I say, I am not medically qualified, and I'm not going to pretend to be. I've told you what my qualifications are. But what I want to do is kind of like steal a little bit off Hutch of doing some sort of vlog. I think that's what we decided it was called. And I'm not going to say I'm going to commit to it every day, because I would soon get distracted, because my mind doesn't focus long enough for that sort of thing. But what I'm also going to do is make it so that it's very, very honest as well. And that is that if I'm having a bad day, I'm going to come on this particular part of the page and I'm going to show how I'm going to manage a bad day. So today is an improvement over the last few weeks because I got a good night's sleep. So there's my first thing. I've had the kettle on plenty of times today because I like a cup of tea, but I'm being hydrated. I've managed to get myself out into nature with my dogs, and my dogs are my absolute world. So it's all contributed to being a better day. So what I'm looking at here is it's been a successful day because I've gone from this thought process to producing content and coming on here, which is about lifting my channel. I've had to tweak something because, I say, originally when I started with all of this, I thought that I was going to start getting a lot of subscribers. I thought that I was going to be, I honestly thought I'd be at 400 or 500 by now and that we'd be well on the way. But the reality side of the thing is that what age of the person and part of my mind is expecting that. Well, that's the kid in me. That's the over enthusiastic, because nothing happens without effort. Nothing happens without consistency. Nothing happens without time in. And all of that takes time to build. So again, it's a little tweak in the methodology, but it's all about how I work with my mindset. So like there's certain parts of me that go to, and that I will apologize for this, and I will tell you I'm not good enough, and there's all sorts going on in my head all of the time. But what I found with it is it's exhausting. So I was having a conversation early on today, and the lady who knows what I'm talking about, we were talking off camera about it, that I am not going to keep apologizing and trying to make light of what's going on with me anymore. People will either stick with me or they'll drift off. My desire, right, is to help people understand them and that they're not on their own. So I wanted to kind of like build a community. And all right, okay, sorry. Apologize. Yeah, I didn't quite read the comment there. See, there we go. I'm apologizing again. You see, you don't need to apologize if you actually do the thing right in the first place, which you look at the time that you're giving to something. But what you're doing in the morning, Gemma, it's just to demonstrate that when you think, even when you think that I'm not very good at X, Y, Z, well, one thing you are good at, that as human beings, when we get into a routine, is we follow a certain pattern. you know, you're following a certain pattern. So like for me, when I get up, I like my big snuggly hoodie on now that my wife thought that I wouldn't even wear. I like that on because it gives me that, you know, that sensory comfort, as you spoke about there earlier on. Toilet, go downstairs, put the kettle on, have a cup of tea, sit there, look at my bits on the computer, and then I'm sort of slowing my breathing down, because the second that this opens up, it's on full bore, it's exhausting. I don't get a break from it. So it's like easing myself into the day, but you get that routine so that you know how you're going to cope on a pretty much average day. And then any energy that you've got spare, you put it into whatever it is that you want to achieve during the day. So sometimes it's just like noticing that even when we're doing the basics, we're good at certain things. You know, I mean, my skill set is that I sit and watch telly early in the morning for the first hour, and all of the American soaps that I've seen countless amounts of times. My skill set is that I manage to remember pretty much all the lines, all of the episodes. Now, it's not a great skill to have, but it's still a skill. It's still a talent. And I'm doing it in my own unique way, and nobody else could do it like I do. So it's just sometimes remembering just to give yourself a laugh as well, to give yourself that upliftment, because all therapists, and whether you agree with me or not, this is my opinion, are selling feelings to you. And what a good therapist should be doing is helping you promote yourself and your better feelings. I just wanted to make that sort of slight tweak of just going, right, so when I sit round, for those of you that have seen me with the waistcoat on and seen me with my garb or at shows or anything like that, or when I'm gobbing off on stage and I'm up there, I'm fired up, I'm in that character. I love it, because, like I say, when you connect with spirit and the universe and things like that, I feel absolutely bulletproof. And then there's the other side of me that comes in, that isn't confident, that is fighting all of the time. And what I've had to learn is to flow with that sort of energy. And that's the bit that I find difficult. That is where I've not quite got to grips with the anxiety. So I can be having the best run in the world, like where, you know, you're going up there and you're being praised for the work that you're doing, and then come off there, I'm exhausted. So it is putting on that show. But as somebody bluntly put it to me the other day, and thankfully she's not on here, because I was sitting here going like, she went, stop being a fucking show monkey. But like I said to her, I understand the concept of what she's saying to me. But when you've run that as a core running program from your very early teens to now into my 50s, that is something that is not going to be switched off overnight. So that is my ongoing journey with it all. So before I go off, because I didn't know how this was going to go. I didn't want to script it. I've not done myself any pointers or anything like that. I just wanted to see how it run. The idea is, if there's people there that are interested, I will put on there what I'm looking to talk about. One of the ladies that comes on the other things that I do said I should do a mental health Monday and a tarot Tuesday. Now, I'm not going to make commitment to that, but I love that idea of that. So I build all of my work around when the wife goes out and does exercise classes and things like that. And I'm quite happy to come up here and talk. But the thing is, I want to help people. So it's helping people understand how they're processing. And I honestly think as well that vicariously, and I have had this conversation earlier on this afternoon, people will tell you if they don't want you around you, in the sense of, oh God, you're boring me, you're too much of a burden, whatever. So you know to withdraw. But if you consider as well that damaged people probably heal as well by sharing stories, by working with one another's energy, you can learn from it. And as I say, you're essentially selling feelings all of the time. You should be looking for a better feeling all of the time from your thoughts. If you're not getting better feelings from your thoughts, why aren't you getting better feelings from your thoughts? So there's the problem, there's the issue. And you can only attack it within your own unique way. So it's basically charging your batteries and running on not running on vapor and things like that. So right, so I'm looking at this, I'm just looking at these last few comments, right? And I'm not like getting into like answering direct. I'm just basically absorbing your atmospheres, guys. It's also called auditory processing and sensory. Thank you. Right, because again, when we're drawn together, Gemma, then that is showing me something that I don't know. I've never been shy about saying about my mental health issues, but I've not wanted to bore people purely because I have been avoided. I have been take the piss out of, however you want to call it. So you kind of go within with it. And it was just, I had a conversation with somebody last year that said, have you considered that you're neurodivergent? And I'll be truthful, I didn't know what it was about. And I'm not a big fan of these where you go onto the internet and do self-diagnosis. So it was just a conversation. And I started to look through this, what was being said to me, and it was like somebody shining a torch in my head because it switched the light on. It makes so much sense. I am not sitting here and self-diagnosing, but when you start to resonate with what goes on, like I can't cope with quite a lot of things, and I'm not making excuses, because if you're thrown into it, you have to find a way of dealing with it. But I don't cope very well with certain things, and the older I get, the more set in my ways. So all of this heartache and tearing myself apart about not being good enough and can't do this and can't do that, there's been very genuine reasons for it, but I didn't realize it. So I'm actually stepping into that void and dealing with the anger at myself that I've not done certain things when realistically I couldn't, because I didn't have the support, I didn't have the guidance, I didn't have the knowledge. So this is what I'm looking at now. I'm studying for my own benefit. I am studying what makes me tick so that I can find coping strategies, so that hopefully one day I can come on to this thing, hopefully if it's still going and I've still got that drive to do it, that I can come on here without any like background, any like costume or anything like that. And I can sit there and I can just go, hey, I'm Rick Paul, right? Without the label of being the psychic, the medium, and not hiding behind some sort of persona, because that is what I've done for the last 50 years. That point at the moment is a hell of a long way off. I've got a lot of work to do, but with the support of genuine people, I'm going to make it. And the thing is about me, and you can take this as read, you can take this to the bank, that if you're on my side and you support me, I'm loyal to you to your last breath, because I really value other people's energy and input. If you're going to take the piss or belittle me or deride me or send me comments like a couple of people have done recently, I'm history. You know, we're done. We're not going to come to a mutual understanding, because I just can't be bothered. To be fair, I've got enough on in my mind. So I'm going to bring it to a close. This is the lady I was saying there just a few minutes back, that said to me about doing the mental health Monday and the Tuesday tarot. And so this is the lady that inspired it, and we've had some good conversations on Discord about certain things. And I say it's talking to like-minded people and helping you realize that it is okay to be different. Right? I've always accepted that other people are different. I don't have an issue with that. I've not accepted that I'm different, and that has been my issue. So I can promise you that I'm working towards that. The anxiety at the minute is like off the scale. I can't find out what the entire reason is, but like Gemma was saying, it can be quite difficult, but I won't be stopped. So it was back to like earlier on, as we were saying then, is the depression's real, the anxiety's real, the bereavement's real. Right, that's my storyline. And then what? So, as my great friend Priscilla on here said, who are you without your story? And the answer at the moment is, I don't know. When I do find out, my storyline will change. At the moment, I just know me as what I am, and that's got a lot of my history involved in it. But when hopefully you guys will tune in tomorrow, where I will have the waistcoat on and I will be you know, doing the stuff that I do with the spirit world and the tarot cards, because we're all set up and ready to go for that. I just wanted to come on here tonight, test the waters, and I'm really, really grateful for the response that I've had. I'll put this video up for people to look at. Hopefully managed to get a bit more of a description in there that I got, because like I said, it was just it's been going through the thing about having the two minds and the two personalities, and just remembering who turns up. I put the parable of the two wolves on the other day about who's the one that wins the battles, and it's the one that you feed the most. And that is exactly how I am. That is exactly how I am. It's the one that turns up for whoever. And at the minute, that's the showbiz sort of side of me that loves that showing off aspect of it. This one still needs some working on. So, you know, I've got work to do. Let me just keep. I think doing these lives are going to be an important part of your chat. Do you know, I had a message today from another medium who said exactly that. I hope so. I really do, because that is where my heart is. It also helps me with my own mental health as well. So it is absolutely brilliant. So we're down to 4 people showing on here, so I'm gonna bring that to a close, because as I say, I didn't know whether anybody'd be on here, and I thought I'd be off in about 10 or 15 minutes. But as per usual, you guys have rallied round. I'm not going to apologise for the fact that my energy is not where it should be, because that is part of the learning curve. But when I come on here next time, I feel like I can be comfy and sit there with me hood up. If I'm twitching or anything like that, tomorrow night's going to be a different kettle of fish, because that's the professional side of me. And as well, if you recommend me for any readings or any sort of counselling and things like that, you have been quite privileged in the fact of that I've been open to you guys, because I want to promote mental health and people's awareness of other people that have got different ways of thinking. Now, when I put my other hat on, that's completely different. So no matter how low I'm feeling, a client will never know that, because I work with spirit. So it's not all on me. All I have to do is deliver, and I'm delighted to do that. So what I'm going to say, thank you very much from the bottom of my heart for supporting me, even though, let's say, I've been a bit flat. Thank you for understanding. Thank you for listening. And hopefully see you on either the vlog edition, where I'm just going to get up and put that 5 or 10 minutes on, or when I do this next week. So, or whenever it is. But the aim is to continue with doing this. So my little catchphrase as it comes in is to go out there, keep shining, don't sweat the small stuff, and always remember as well, it's okay to be in two minds. Thank you very much, and good night.